Yep. So everyone, hello, good morning. This is Linda Easton Warner, and she is like an icon in the grooming industry internationally. So it is like a great, huge honor for us to have her here. I would request everybody to please show some respect in terms of keeping your mics off while she is speaking. And if in case anybody has any questions, please type them in the chat box and I will read them out to Linda. Uh, and another shout out to Janvi for helping us set this up. So thank you, Janvi. And over to you, Linda.
All right. So I'll kind of tell you who I am. I'm the president of the International Professional Groomers, IPG, and I've been grooming for well over 40 years. We won't talk about how many years. And I started grooming and then I real quickly got involved in showing dogs, and I finished about 42 champions in many, many different breeds. And I've competed in grooming contests and I've done best in show and best all around groomer and grooming contests. So I've done a lot. And over the years, what I think has kind of set me apart is that I was working all week in a grooming salon and then showing dogs all weekend. And I did a lot of dogs. Can you lift the camera just a little bit? So one of the things that I did was develop a system. And I call it the Smart Style system. And it's a system of getting dogs done. It's not speed grooming by any means. It's just a system to go through from start to finish that I do every dog so that I have consistency in my groom. And it does speed me up because systems just always speed you up. So it makes me more efficient and I get a good, consistent outcome. So you'll hear me talk about that as we talk about grooming. I'm going to talk about shape and style, and I'm using a poodle, but this is not all about poodles because all dogs need to have shape. It's the piece that will set your grooming apart, even on your pets. Even if their hair is short, you can still give them shape. And owners don't go, oh, look, she put angles on my dog. Owners will say things like, he just looks happy, because your goal is to make them look more up on their toes. So in general, stand up. Our goal when we're grooming, when we're trying to do shape, is to make the dog look short from front to back and tall on leg so that they look very compact and up on their toes. So that's our goal. So that means we're going to take hair off the front of the dog and off the back of the dog to make them look short. And then we're going to make sure that they don't have a lot of hair on their chest, which will make them look dumpy. And one of the things that will make dogs look compact is diagonal lines. So anything that's at an angle behind the neck, under the body, anytime you have a diagonal line, it tends to make things appear shorter. So we're going to talk about that. And then we'll also talk about scissors and scissoring, because that's kind of one of it took me a long time to learn to scissor. I don't think I learned to scissor for the first 11 years that I groomed. Back then we did everything with clippers. We skimmed. And when I started competing, I had to learn how to scissor, and it was quite a journey and it was very difficult for me. So I'm always really happy to share what took me so long with everybody else so that you guys can all learn how to scissor and not have to struggle like I did. So when I use my system, it's kind of like a 10-step system, 7-step, depending on how you count it. I do all my short clipper work first. So he's had his feet and his face, his sanitary, all that's done. So that's my first thing. The goal is, if I'm using different blades or different attachments, to not have to change them back and forth. So if I were doing him with an attachment, my next step would be, well, I trim the bevels, and then my next step would be to do the legs, because the legs are usually longer if I'm going to use an attachment on them. And then I would do the body, because that's a shorter attachment. Now, as I do the body, I can blend into the legs. Most people start with the body, and then they switch to a long attachment to do the legs, and then they switch back to that short attachment to blend. Or you have to do a lot of work with scissors. So I'm going to show you a faster way to do that. I'll show you how to do it with scissors also, but attachments are a great way to get a really nice plush finish. And it's also a really good way to teach you to scissor smoothly using attachments. So we'll kind of talk about that. So I'm going to do the bevels, then I'll do the legs, and then I'll do the body, and then I do head and tail. So when I work on the body, and this is really important, you always want to start at the rear end, and then do the front end, and then do the middle. What happens if you start in the middle, and I've watched thousands of grooming videos from people certifying, and everybody wants to start in the middle. They want to set that underline and the top line. And what happens if you start here is that you tend to make the dog long. So you want to start at the back and work to the front. So the first thing I would do is set his rear angle. And I'm going to show you with scissors, but then I'm going to show you a faster way with an attachment. So I lift up the tail and I set my scissors, and I'm going to do about a 30-degree angle here. Can you see my scissors? Do you have me spotlighted on yours so that it's a bigger picture?
Yes. Let me just, okay.
So about a 30-degree angle. The tendency is to make this too steep. There you go. If you make this steep, the dog's going to look kind of weak in the rear. They're going to look tucked. They're going to look like they're tucked under. So you don't want this too steep. So I kind of use the tail as my brace, and I'm just going to set that angle. Like I said, about 30 degrees. And then I just scissor forward along the top line from that. So I'm just kind of doing this top area of the back to start with. And I'm going to come straight out. And then once I have that line, now I'm going to set the rear. So if I find the point of his buttocks, I'm going to come down about opposite his stifle and set the line of his rear end. Because I'm trying to shorten his body, shorten the appearance of his body. Obviously, I'm not going to change him with my scissors. So now I've got these two, his tail's in the way. And we're going to rough in his shape, and then we're going to talk about scissoring. So now I have these two lines, and then I'm just going to blend this. You know, I came to a stifle, and then I'm just going to blend that off to the back of his leg. I'm not going to touch the front of his leg or his underline. And I'm not going to turn him on the table, but when you're setting the rear, you want a V on the back legs, which the last person that groomed him took that all out, and then you're going to match it on the outside. So I would set my V, a straight line down from the middle towards his leg. So it's you know, A-frame, and then I match it on the outside of his leg. And you can just set it from the side so that your lines are fairly parallel. And I'm also going to show you how to do this with an attachment. And I set the line that I want from the side, and then I comb and I come here to scissor it smooth. So I'm telling myself where to cut from the back, and then I'm scissoring from the side. I would actually probably be a little bit more in front of him. So I'm just going to get a smooth line down the outside of the leg. This whole outside is smooth. I'm not worried about any of this or the front of his leg. And then once you have that, you can blend that around to the line you've got here. So you're just going to take the edges off. So it's pretty simple. So now you're just taking your edges off. So you've got a line here and a line here, and you're just blending it around. So once this is set, now we're going to go to his front, and we're going to set in his front. So when you set the front end, you want to think of a line from behind the ear to behind the elbow. So a line here. Everything forward of that is going to go fairly short as I wrap the comb in him, because that's going to give him length of neck. So with my scissors, and I do this, doesn't have to be a poodle, so I'm going to remember this line. All of this will go pretty short. And if you notice, I'm doing the outside and I want it to go smooth. I'm setting it from the front so I can see this line. I want it to go smoothly. Here, maybe I can get him to turn you a little bit. There we go. Does that help? Kind of. He's almost too light. So what you want is a smooth line from his neck down the outside of his shoulder to the outside of his leg. And I can set that from the front. I can't scissor it perfectly smooth from the front, but I can set this line so that you have a nice smooth line from the back of the ear all the way down to the outside of his leg. And if you look, let's see, I don't know if it'll show he's very round here. See how he bows out? So I've changed that round and made him much straighter here. There you can see it's straight. So then once I have that line, now I fluff him up again, and now I can scissor on it. So once I've set the shape, that's when I get my coat spray and I fluff and I scissor, because I don't know why, but he's really lumpy. So I've got those lines that I had, and now I just want to make them smooth. We're going to talk about putting the shape, and then I'll talk about how we can get the scissoring smooth. So now I've got this line smooth. So now the next shape, and what you do is you do the outside of the leg, and then you're going to match the line on the inside of the leg. So these two are parallel. He just kind of bows right here. I'm just trying to set in the shape. Can you see that? So that his leg is two parallel lines. What you don't want to do is lift the leg to make those lines. When you do that, their dog's leg is like this part of your arm, and there's two bones in your arm. So when you lift your hand, if you look at your hand, lift your hand and do this. And you can tell these bones are moving because your elbow's coming out, and dogs will do the same thing. So now when they put their foot back down, it turns and you have a hollow in the top of the leg. So when you lift it and scissor it and then put it down, you're going to get it hollow right up in here. So that's why you want to set all your lines with the dog standing, and preferably standing the way the dog is going to be naturally. So we have the outside done. Now what we want to set is this angle. This is your upper arm angle. And this is what's going to help shorten the look of the dog's body. So this is going to shorten him. See how it made him look shorter already? Because we've given him an angle. And so don't think about giving him a round chest. He's got a chest. He's still pretty long here, and he's longer there than he is here. But what you're trying to do is give him this line, this angle. So that's going to shorten him front to rear. So he's already getting some shape. And then once you have those lines, then that's when you start finishing your underline. So now I have a front and a back, and I'm going to think about my underline. And you want to take this pretty tight up to his chest. So not as long as a comb. Almost doesn't matter how long the dog's body is. You want this to be fairly short, because that's what's going to give him a lot of leg. If you leave this long, his elbow is right here. So I want to be no longer than his elbow. If you leave it longer than that, he's going to look shorter legged and a little bit dumpier. So we want that up. So that's the shape we want there. And now that you've got this, you can kind of see, if you know where the front of your leg is, you can see where you want the line on the back part of the leg. So that you're giving him columns. And all I'm doing right now is blocking it in. I'm not worried if my scissoring is perfect. Let's move the leg so you can see. I'm just setting the shape. And then once I have that, now I can find his loin and his flank and the front of his back leg. And when you're thinking about doing this, this is the dog's waist. So on poodles, it's going to be a little bit more elegant than on some dogs. On a Bichon, they're not going to have much waist here. But I want to set that about now. Now you find his rib. Here's his last rib. A good rule of thumb, he's kind of hard to tell because he's big, is go just behind the last rib and draw a line to the front of his toes. And that's about where your line of your flank. If you pull this line back too far on the flank, do this, you'll make the dog look, without him hunching, you make the dog look longer bodied. He wants to hunch when I do that. And a pull. So if you pull this back and this line is coming back too far, you stretch out the length of his body. So you want this forward. So you want to give him a flank, and that's when you're going to set the line on the front of his leg. So does that make sense? So that's just a really quick blocking in. And then the last thing I do is then I set this top line. And the reason is when somebody looks at the dog, you want their eye to go from the back of the dog up and forward and up. So that's where you want to pull the eye. So the last line that I want to do is this one, because this is the one that pulls the eye forward. So I've set his rump. And now I'm going to set his top line. And it does help when you have a dog that stands on the table, but most of my poodles stand pretty good. So you're just going to flatten this out, and basically you're trimming to a spot kind of right behind the withers. All this is, it's going to be at a different time. So you're just trying to level his top line. So now you've just blocked in his shape. If you stand behind him, he kind of fades away because he's so dark, light. So see, I've blocked in his shape. So now he has shape. So now we're going to go through and do finish work on him. Now, if you're not really comfortable scissoring yet, you can do this with your attachments. Let's see. And it just depends on your length. You can take, like this is a number 1 attachment, so I can set the top line with that. I wanted to leave enough hair so that you can see that this works. So that gives you that top line, but still you're going to start just behind the point of withers. And then same thing, you can do this back line here coming down. You can use that attachment to set that line. And if you're working on scissoring, scissor first like I did, then use your attachment, and then go back over and scissor it again, because the attachment's going to give you a flatter line. So it gives you a way to practice your scissoring. Same thing with top lines. Top lines are probably the hardest area to scissor. So use your attachment and then go over it again with your scissors. And that's how you will teach yourself to scissor smoothly. So let's do, a little bit longer one on his body, which I set somewhere, hiding it from myself. So we can do his whole body. We left him pretty long to get ready for this. With an attachment. And here's the trick to your attachment. Pick an area that you're working on. I'm not going to do it on his legs, just his body. And then he has pretty thick hair. I'm not going to dig out his flank. And if you notice, I stopped about the point of his hip, and I'm just going to I'm going to touch his hip and then skim off to blend it into his leg. And you want to kind of try to go the direction of the dog. You want to use pretty long strokes. Or go the direction the hair grows. And if you're not sure, look at a short hair dog. The hair grows the same pretty much on all breeds. So once I've gone over it once quickly, I'm going to mist it with my coat spray and brush it up. And then I'm going to clip that same area again. Don't try to go really fast with your clipper. You want to go slow enough that the blade has a chance, the hair has a chance to feed to the blade. And I get to here and I skim off into his leg. And especially on the side of the body, this is a really difficult area to scissor. So I always start it with an attachment. If I want it long, I just use a little bit longer attachment so that I can scissor over it. So by doing that, by going over it twice, for the most part, except for I want to scissor, you have a pretty smooth finish. And by clipping, spraying and brushing it up and then clipping again, it will save you a ton of time. So in the front, I'm just going to go over his shoulder just a little bit in here. Remember I said that this area from the back of the ear to the back of the elbow is a little bit shorter. So I will take my next shorter attachment. That was the, oops, this was the A, I believe. I can never remember what these are. These are wall attachments, and this is the A, which is 19 millimeters. So I'm going to take the next shorter one, and that area that I said is shorter, and this is on all dogs, Cocker Spaniels, Cockapoos, Doodles, all of them are going to be a little bit shorter here, a little bit tighter. He's really long because he got left pretty long last time. So you're going to take this shorter, and I'm just doing the side. And then when I get to the muscle on the outside of his leg, I clip over the muscle and then just skim off into his leg, because I want that straight line down to his leg.
So Linda, I have a question. So
Yes.
you're not cutting into the top of the back of his neck. So
No,
what is the line? Yeah. So what is the line that you're taking until where should we go really short before we start blending it into the neck?
I know I should have chalk. So let me show you again. He's kind of hard. I don't know if there's a place it's not tickled. So think about back of the ear. Mm-hmm. So a little bit buff, like not your clipper line, but the very back of the ear to the back of his elbow. Okay. So all this is shorter. And then if you take that comb and go about like this, I take all this short. So basically I'm leaving everything above the comb there longer, and I'll scissor that in later.
Okay, so that's
And,
approximately a 90-degree angle, the one that you take from the.
Yeah, that way I get this angle.
Okay.
Now, if you don't want to leave them that long and it's just a pet, like what we do with our doodles, whatever length attachment I use on his legs, that's what I take this longer area with.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be scissored. It can be done with an attachment, and you will still get that shape. So this line, so just think of that straight line down to the back of his elbow. And then when I get to the bottom of the muscle, I just skim off into his leg. And then when I am doing the front, you know, here's the point of his chest there. So I just come a little ways down, and then I blend off. I'm not going to follow this all the way around. However, this line here can sometimes be really difficult. So you can do that with your attachment. And I'm skimming a little bit here. But as your scissoring improves, you won't need to do this as much, but it's a much easier way to learn the shape. Using attachments are great for learning how to do shape because they just make it easier. So we've blocked in his shape. Now we're going to talk about scissoring. Good boy. So when I scissor, hang on, Quill. Couple of things about scissors. I forget where my camera is. This is, if I put it in front of my smock, it shows. I would recommend always using an offset shank. That means that your top shank is shorter than your bottom shank. These are the shanks, the finger holes, the finger parts of it. So behind, and you want the area behind the screw to be fairly short. You want the longer area to be up front, and that what that does is when your shanks are offset, it allows you to keep your wrist straight. So when you're scissoring, you're going to just move your thumb. Oops, let me get in front of myself. And because the top part of my scissor is shorter, you know, if you hold your hand out, your thumb's not as long as your fingers. So your thumb naturally comes here into the middle of your hand. If everybody's sitting there, hold your right hand or your left, whichever your scissor hand is, hold it out, put your fingers, your palm down, and set your thumb and see where your thumb goes. That's where you want your scissors to hit, is where that thumb naturally goes. That's why you want that offset shank. These are scissors that we make. These are our Smart Style scissors. And the only reason we make scissors is because I would tell people this, and they would go to the shows and they would go buy scissors, and they would come back and show me, and they would spend a ton of money for these scissors. And they'd come back and they had these great big huge handles. And it's like, no. So we finally just started selling scissors. But when you hold them, so what you want to do, and this is, you know, try to be able to hold scissors if you can, if you go someplace where you can see them before you buy them. But this is what you want. You want the scissor to set in your hand. Your first finger goes under the screw part of the scissor. Your second finger goes under the, you know, the shank. Your third finger goes into the ring hole. And then your fourth finger, this is called the tang, and it sits on your fourth finger. So your fingers aren't shoved into the scissor, and the scissor is sitting on your hand comfortably. And then your thumb comes in, and it's your thumb that does all the work. So you see my hand isn't moving. You can teach yourself this. You watch TV at night, or, you know, don't do it at dinner time, but sit someplace where you can just kind of relax, set your scissor in your hand, put it on the couch, whatever it is, and practice just moving your thumb. That's what gives you, see, if you're moving your whole hand, can you see how the scissor moves? So you want to just move your thumb. That's the key to smooth scissoring, is training yourself to just move your thumb. And I will tell you that after 11 years of grooming, I used the wrong finger in my scissors, and I moved everything. And I struggled, and I was taking lessons. And finally, one day I looked at the scissors that my instructor had, and I realized she had short shanks. And I said, the back of your scissor is different than mine. She goes, oh yeah, that's all I use. It's like, well, you could have told me. So now I'm telling you, you can skip that whole year that I struggled because I couldn't make my scissoring work. And then my next mistake was I went to the next trade show, bought a really expensive pair of scissors, you know, the exact same one she had that had the offset shank, and I only used them when I competed. So I didn't get better very fast. You have to get good scissors and you have to use them every day because you have to develop that muscle memory of scissoring. And that's the only way you're going to do it. Doesn't mean you don't take care of them. You should definitely take care of them. And you should buy the best scissors you can afford, because the better the scissor, the easier it will be. When I go certify, when we do, you know, live, which we haven't been able to do for a while, I will always pick up people's scissors to show them things. And some of the scissors I pick up, it's like, oh my gosh, you did a really nice job considering how bad your scissors are. So the best you can afford and use them every day. Just take care of them. You want to oil the back of your scissor. There's a little ridge when you open them up on the inside. That's where you put a little bit of oil and then wipe it off. Clean them. Use a little piece of chamois, little piece of leather, something like that. Clean your scissors off every night and put them inside a leather case or a fake leather case, something where they're out of the air. It's really moist where you guys are. So your tools need to be closed. Leather is ideal for scissors. The oil in the leather is good for them, and it will protect them from the moisture in the air. The moisture in your air, the grooming powders that we use, all that stuff is terrible for our blades. So clean them at the end of the day and put them in a case. So really take care of them. And that goes with all of your scissors. Don't hang them on the wall on a magnet, because that also gets them out of sharpen. And so then you have to go find somebody to sharpen them. So you don't want to hang them on the wall, and you don't want to just leave them on your table. You want to put them away. I always have my case sitting out. I set them on my case, and then between dogs or at the end of the day, I put them inside the case so that you're really going to take good care of them. Try not to drop them. Okay, so.
Linda, we have a question.
Okay.
Bhavna is asking, what number attachment did you use for the neck?
Oh. Do you guys use the wall attachments? Are you familiar with those?
We do, yes.
On his body, I actually used the A. Mm-hmm. And then on his neck and behind his rear, I used the 0.
Okay.
So it was one step down from what I used on his body. And then if I were going to do his legs with an attachment, I would do probably a C, which would be the longest, or the D, whichever one's longest. E, you know, the blue one, the longest one.
The light blue one, yeah.
Yeah,
I use the colors. I use the colors.
Go by colors.
Yeah, I do
I have
too.
to look at them to see what number they are. Come here, stand up. Stand up. So we've set the shape on him, and we've gone over him with an attachment. So now we want to work on our scissoring. I always use coat spray when I scissor. And the reason is a good coat spray will lift the coat. So you're fluffing it with your comb, and then the coat spray holds it there, so that's how you're going to get a smoother finish. So I'm going to use his side because it's a big area for what I want to explain. When you're scissoring, and remember, I've already taken an attachment over this, so I have a pretty good smooth line. But what I want to think about is not that this hair sticks out here or that this hair sticks out here. I want to think of this whole area as being flat on him, a little bit round because he's a poodle, depending on what kind of dog. But I want to think about scissoring this area. So if I do this and cut that hair, and I don't know if you can see it on him, but now I have a whole hair. So that's what you want to not do. So I always tell people kind of start the motor out here and then go in with it. So start the motor and go in and think about scissoring this line. So you're scissoring an area, not a hair that's sticking out. And I do want them round, so I'm scissoring it round, and I'm using my straights. I use straights a lot. You could use curves. When I was starting to groom in competitions, it was really hard to find good curves. So I taught myself how to do everything with my straights, and now the curves are just kind of a treat. So I'm thinking about scissoring this area. So you want to scissor over it, and I do everything the same way. Scissor over it, mist it, and fluff it again. And now you can kind of see whatever you've missed. Same thing, there's a hair sticking out here. So I don't want to go in and cut that hair. I want to get my scissors going and scissor that area. So then I can see, now I'm going to move my way back here. And now I can kind of go wherever I want because I've set the shape already. I'm starting here because it's a bigger surface for me to explain what I'm doing. Normally I would start in the back, but I just want you to see that I'm scissoring a shape, and then I'm going to comb, fluff, and scissor it again. And if you do this, you really should only have to go over most of the areas twice. That first time you comb, you fluff, you do it again, and you're going to be pretty close, especially when you're going over after you've used your attachment.
So we have another sorry, Linda. We had another question about the coat spray. What coat spray do you like, and what do you normally, go with?
This is Crown Royal number 3.
Okay.
Which I've been using forever. I don't know if you can get it there. Nope, I also use Hydra. Hydra makes a really nice detangling spray. Mm-hmm. And the key is, and it depends, what works really good for me here may not work for you because it's moist there. Sean V's been using the Hydra, so she might be able to tell you how the Hydra works in your climate. Right. When you go to Vegas, none of the stuff that I work here works there. Okay. Andre, you've been to Vegas. Yes. It's so dry. It's like nothing works.
That's true.
You need water. When I used to show poodles, you'd use hairspray and it would like be gone before it ever touched the hair. So it really depends on where you are. The key is you want something that holds the hair out without making it gummy. Okay. So especially when you have so much humidity, you want to be really careful that it's not very thick. And it may mean that whatever product you get, you dilute more than I would here in because I'm in Oregon and it's fairly dry here. It's not like Las Vegas, but it's fairly dry. So I dilute things a little bit more than people do on the East Coast. Okay. So you have to kind of play with it, but you don't want to use something heavy. Most of your like detangling sprays are going to be way too heavy. Okay. You want something that's light that doesn't gum up the coat, because I spray a lot. So even if it's just water will even help. Right. So you just have to kind of experiment with what you have access to and see what works for you.
So is it okay to dilute like a detangling spray and use that, like just any detangling spray and see what works for you?
Have to watch. Some of your detangling sprays have a lot of silicone and they'll make the coat flat. So you just have to kind of see what's in them. Some of you, if you have a really nice, like a leave-in cream rinse conditioner, you might dilute that way down and mist it, and you're just going to have to play with it. And if you, what I do is if I'm playing with something new and I don't like it, I use it and I put the dog in and wash it again.
Right.
I don't send them home that way. The nice thing about the way the Crown works for me is it holds the coat out after the dog's gone home. It stays really nice looking for a number of days.
Right.
And that's always good for us. The other thing that helps is really prepping the coat well before you start. He was not bathed today.
Oh, he's tired. I think it's sleepy time.
This is late for him. This is his nap time. He was actually bathed a couple of days ago, but he was fluffed so well that I went through today and rebrushed him and sprayed coat spray, and his coat still pops out. So you don't want to crate dry them. You want to get them as straight as you can when you dry them, because you want to, if you're doing that as you dry them, that means the nice coat will last longer.
Okay.
So,
so do you use BioGroom there?
I have used BioGroom in the past, and that's a nice product. If you can, I would say whatever you try, dilute it way down to start.
Okay.
Just dilute the bejeebers out of it and then try it.
All right. Cool.
So I've set the shape on the back of his leg, and then I took this a little bit shorter. So I'm going to start with his rear end and move forward as I'm scissoring. But it's the same thing. I combed it up. I'm going to mist it. And then I'm going to go over the areas that I took my attachment to. And I set his rear angle in. So now And I will tell you, this is a little awkward. I always keep two hands on a dog. I know he's going to stay here and I don't want to block your view. And I'm kind of like, what do I do with this hand? So I want this angle not too steep. And then I just want to blend it in. And I just have to check because I took this a little bit shorter. But the key is to keep your scissors moving. Don't hunt and peck with your scissors. I don't know how many of you took typing lessons when you were learning the keyboard and they said not one finger at a time. It's the same thing when you're scissoring. So scissor a little bit, fluff it up, coat spray. And then think about that whole, I'm thinking about this whole surface of this leg as I'm scissoring to try to get it flat. And I just move my scissors fairly slowly. I'm keeping my wrist straight. I will bend it more when I'm doing a demo because I try to stay out of your way. Try to keep your wrist straight. That's how you prevent carpal tunnel syndrome, which is, you don't want to get that because that would be the end of your, could be the end of your grooming career. I just want everything nice and smooth. The reason you keep your wrist straight is doing this with your wrist. Your carpal tunnel is actually formed by, there's a ligament that goes from one side of your wrist to the other. And in the back of your wrist, you have your wrist bones. And then in the front, you have this ligament and you have tendons that go up under the ligament and over the bones. So when your wrist is flat, this is a nice big opening. When you tip your wrist, that opening is smaller and these nerves and tendons rub and they get irritated. And that's what causes carpal tunnel syndrome. So real important to take care of your wrist. Same thing when you're brushing, you know, keep that wrist straight, use your elbow. Use your elbow. If you watch when I scissor, I do this. I don't do this. Stand up. Try to stand up. Groomers also have a tendency to like get under here and contort ourselves. You don't want to do that. You want to stand up tall so you can see what you're doing. So now I'm going to do his flank area. And with standards, I kind of set the screw into the flank. I don't set it in there, but that's my guide. And I kind of do a little half circle around that. You can use a curved scissor for this. Like I said, I just kind of trained myself to do almost everything with my straights. You can probably tell when somebody learned how. Now he's got a sticky outie here. So I don't want to just cut the sticky outie. I want to cut the whole area. So that's what keeps it smooth. And then another thing that's real important when you're scissoring is make sure your edge lines are smooth. Your owners may not see if you leave marks here, but they can see the outline. So you always want to make sure that your outline is smooth. As you scissor. And like I said, this is how any of my little fluffy dogs, doodles, poodles, even, you know, your Shih Tzus that you're trimming down, this is how the same shape. Even your sporting dogs are going to have a fairly similar shape because they're going to be short here and you still want to shorten them. Terriers, you still want to shorten them front and back to make them look compact. So now I've set all these lines on my leg. So now I'm just going to go through with my scissors and make them smooth. And you notice it's just my thumb moving. And this just takes a lot of practice. You guys can, if I can learn how to scissor after grooming for 11 years, holding my scissors wrong, you guys can all learn how to scissor. And I think I scissor, the older I get, the better I scissor, even though now I can't see anymore. So just keep practicing. Don't say, oh, I can't ever do that. Just make it your goal to learn to teach yourself. And just think about scissoring an area, you're always thinking about, I want a straight line on the outside of his leg. I want the straight line down the front of his leg. And then once your shapes are set on your legs, that's when you can pick that leg up and work on anything sticking out. But even still, if it's sticking out, I'm not just going to go, oh, there's a hair, and cut it. I'm still going to think about that whole line of the leg. I'm not trying to change the shape. I'm just getting the things that stick out. And I'm going to keep my scissor moving while I'm doing it. And I purposely did not put bevels on him because I know that you guys have done poodle people before. So I'm not trying to do poodle. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what shape is. So you scissor, you comb, you mist, and then you scissor. And I did not use an attachment on his leg, but if I were really struggling, and I used to like struggle a lot when I was learning, and I would just, let it go out lumpy, take an attachment over it, check yourself, struggle with it, and then fix it and send them home smooth. And then the next time they come in, do it again until you just get to where you're not having to fix it. And let the attachments help you learn how to scissor. I can't stress that enough, because they really will help you. And the other thing is just comb, comb, comb. Combing is what, if you don't comb enough, you can get it really looking good and the dog gets on the ground and shakes and it all falls apart. So you don't want that to happen. And then the last thing that I do once I've got the body all in is the head and the tail. So this is when I'm going to blend the shorter part here into the longer part of his neck, which I'm trying to do bright out here. And you notice his head is up. You always want them to have their head in the same position it is when they get down. If I groom him, get down, with his head down, it distorts this line. So then when he puts his head up, he's probably going to have a hole here. Get the other part of his back off so you can see. Try not to leave a hump over their shoulders either. So you can just blend this into the neck. And like I said, on a lot of your pets, this is fairly advanced. You can use whatever attachment you used on their legs here, and it will still be long enough that it will give that dog some class and give them shape. If you take this really short, it gives them a little skinny neck, and it will actually makes the neck look shorter.
So do you feel, Linda, like, he has a curly coat, right? So,
right.
But it's like in India, we have a lot of Shih Tzus. Shih Tzus, Maltese, even Yorkies.
So then you're going to do the exact same thing, the exact same technique, but then you might want to use blenders.
Right.
Which are chunkers. I don't know if you can see these.
Yeah.
See with the chunkers.
Mm-hmm.
But same thing, you're still going to hold them the same way, use your thumb the same way, and they will give you a smooth finish on your wavy coats. So it's the exact same thing, just a little bit different tool.
Okay.
And then you can also do finish work with your thinners. And I can actually show you a little trick. I don't think where to do it on him. When you're grooming your wavy coats or your straight coats, and it's like you can't get that last mark out of them. I will tell you, these are our new chunkers, and I think Sean B got a pair. I have never liked chunkers. I am really old school, and we didn't have them. And these are the first ones that I actually liked to use. So they're kind of fun. So let me think where I'm going to do this. let's do it on his ear. So let's say you're trying to trim this ear and you just can't get it even. So I'm going to pull it. So this is just his hair. Can you see this? You can't really see it. It needs to be behind me. I need your ear in front of my smock. What can I set on you? Here we go. Okay, so this is hair. Can you see it? So I'm going to set my thinners in about 1 inch and make a cut, and come about a 1/2 inch and make a cut, and then 1/4 inch and make a cut. And then when I comb that, it comes out, it shortens it, it will lay flat, and it will be smooth. And this works. This is a trick that I learned cutting my husband's hair, actually, who has stick straight hair. And it always looked like he had a bowl on his head. So I actually do it on my hair too. So the trick is you're cutting the last, I have my hand on his thumb. You're not going in more than 1 inch or 2/3 of an inch for your first cut. And then you make 1 or 2 more cuts, and then you comb it. And it will just make that hair lie flat. And you see the difference in his ears? I don't know if you can see. It made it really flat. And all I did was 1 time. And then you always have to comb and then see if you need to do it again. And then comb. And that works. If you get that spot where you've made a mark in the coat, you cannot figure out how to get it out. I'm gonna make a hole in him to show you this, but you just go in about a 1/2 inch and make a cut with your thinner in a couple of places and comb it, and that hole will disappear. So with your thinners, with our scissors, we were thinking about sculpting. With your blenders or your chunkers, you're going to sculpt. And with your thinners, you're going to use those to go in and just cut a little bit of the top layer off, and it'll make the hair lay flat. Now, if you go all the way in with your thinners and go deep and cut, now what will happen is when that hair grows back, it's going to make everything stick up. So it'll be really ugly. Dog hair grows about a 1/2 inch a month. So we're just trimming the outside, maybe 2/3 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch of hair. So that means you can do this on faces on little Shih Tzus. I'll pull that hair up in my fingers. I just pull that hair up in their face and I trim it. And then I comb it. And then it is blended. It's a little bit shorter, but not short, but it will look shorter and it lays flatter. And the nice thing is, because you're just doing that outer layer of hair, by the time, if the dog comes in 4 weeks, you're taking off what you cut this time. So you're not cutting deep enough where that hair is going to take months to grow back. Every 4 weeks, you've got a whole new layer to kind of work with. So it's a really cool technique. It's kind of hard to explain it on a computer, but the key is, and you just have to take a little Shih Tzu head. When I do Shih Tzu heads, I pull everything forward. So I can take this off because it's long. So take that little Shih Tzu head. You got your thumb here on his eye, pull it over his eye and do 1 cut, 2 cut, 3 cuts and comb it. And it will just stay back off of their face. It's pretty fun. I do the whole head that way. I pull the whole head forward and then I make those cuts and then I kind of shake the head. And so the head is shorter, but you haven't tried to sculpt it, because when you sculpt it, that straight hair doesn't matter how much you try, it comes out choppy looking. And so with this, you're actually working on the whole outer 3/4 of an inch or so of the hair. So you're going to make it look soft and not choppy. The only time you're going to get it choppy is if you try to do that. If you pull it and you go cut, 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 because now you've just done what your scissors would have done. So it's cut, 2 cuts and comb, 2 cuts and comb. That's the key, comb a lot. But your blenders and your thinners will do the same thing. But if you notice, my thinners I hold the same way. I'm still not tipping my wrist. It's the same thing with your chunkers. It's real important to learn how to hold them correctly. I'll tell you another little secret to learning how to get better at this. All my scissors have the same handle. That's because you want to develop muscle memory. If every time you pick up a pair of scissors, the handle is different, that means every time you go to change tools, you're doing something different with your hand. So it's much more difficult to get that muscle memory when you're doing that. You want to do it where it's the same thing every time. So the same handle every time you do it. See, the handle's the same on all of these.
Right.
And that's what will make you get better at this. And I will say that scissoring to me is one of the most fun things, and you will get better at it and better at it and better at it. I quit competing, oh gosh, 15 years ago. And I know I scissor far better now than when I was competing. If I could scissor now like I did then, you know, shoo, what would happen? But it's something that you just get better at. And partly it's because of muscle memory. You get to where when you're first learning to scissor, it's like, okay, now how do I hold them? What do I do with my hand? Where am I cutting? And then you don't think about how you're holding them. Now you're just thinking about what you're cutting. Right. And when you've done a lot of dogs and you really understand shape, now you're just thinking about, let's get it done and make it smooth. So the more parts that just become habit for you, the better your scissoring becomes. Right. And I know that sounds kind of weird, and that just takes, you know, hundreds of hours of practice. And that's why I say, get scissors and use them. Even if you think, well, you know, I really don't do that much scissoring in my salon. Every time you run an attachment over a dog, go over it with a pair of scissors. Even if you're not really taking anything off, like even if you're just, you take that dog and you want to play with your chunkers that day, you've got the line, just practice following the shape that you've got on the dog with your tools, because that's what's going to give you control. Think about not moving your wrist, not tipping, stand up straight, elbows down, and letting that tool just follow. You don't even have to almost, you know, take anything off. You're just trying to practice making that straight line. If you take anything off, you're barely taking it off, which is another piece. When you go to scissor, remember I said, don't hunt and peck. Don't try to shorten the dog a whole bunch with one cut. Gradually shorten it. Cool, can you stand up again? Can you stand up? I want to turn them around so that you can see the difference in the shape. So, can I tell you one other thing about poodle tails? Because I haven't done his tail. And I know this isn't a poodle class, but it might affect some of your other dogs that have shorter tails. We're growing his tail out. He was in a German trim. His tail, he has a really long tail buck. It's almost like a natural tail. And he's got a bunch of hair at the top of it. So with his tail this long, it actually makes his neck look shorter. So you want to find his occiput and think of a line, and that's where you want the top of his tail to be. So if I run my hand up to his tailbone, my thumb is right at the top of his bone, and take the top of his tail off. See how that made his neck look longer? And I didn't even shape his tail. I just took the top off. Then you can shape it if you want. I haven't decided if he's going to have a long tail or not, but that just lengthened his neck. So let's look at his shape. So I've shortened him here. I've shortened him here. I've tightened this up, and I've leveled out his top line. So let me stand behind him so you can see his shape. So you can see the shape of his rear and the shape of his front. Sorry. Oh. Sorry. And then we're going to turn him around so you can see the side that we didn't work on. Come on, girl. Turn. Turn. And he's built pretty nice, so he always looks kind of good, but when he doesn't have the shape, he always has a lot of bend of hock. and I shortened his top line a little bit, but he looks roachy on the top. And if you notice, he looks a little dumpier because all of this is long. So it makes it look like his head is going forward and his back looks a little roachy. So he actually looks a little dumpier than when on the side where we took his neck nice and tight. Turn again. Turn. Go. It's like, this is silly. See here now his neck looks longer and he doesn't look dumpy. And that's this. That's all this coming off that did that. He's got a pretty nice rear, so it's hard to make his rear look bad. But see how he looks, even this looks shorter backed because this is short and tight. That makes sense?
Yep. So you've shortened the shoulder area more on a slant rather than flat down the neck, right? So you've taken that on again. You've taken the shoulder, the front of the shoulder area, you've taken it more on a slant rather than flat down from the neck down
right
to
here,
the chest.
yes.
Right? So that gives it a little more. So these are the diagonal lines that you were talking about, right?
Right. So this is a diagonal. Under here is a diagonal. And then what you're kind of trying to do is set his head back over his shoulders. Mm-hmm. If you notice on the other side, it looked like his head was poking out because this was so long. By shortening this without him changing his position, it makes the head look like it's back over the shoulders. This is real obvious when you do things like Bichons. You can see that a lot. If you don't take this short, you'll scissor and your groom and you go, what's wrong? It still looks dumpy.
Right.
And a lot of times it's just this. Same thing with like your cockers, your sporting dogs. They all get shorter. You know, a cocker would be a short blade. And it's not this. It's this area here down to the back of the elbow. And then I blend it into the longer body. And then I blend that up. But this is what gives them neck. And when you give them this neck and you give them the shape and you pull the eye forward and up, they look up on their toes and ready to go. So what your owners will say is things like, Charlie looked so happy today. And you're like, oh yes, he was such a good dog. And really it's because you changed the shape.
Right.
I've had dogs. I did a little toy poodle that came to me every week. And he finally decided, well, I wouldn't give him enough of a break. So he went and tried someone else. And literally she was a 4-blade on her body and a real short attachment on her legs. They were the old double duck attachments. So just a little bit longer than her legs. But I always left the back of her neck longer and she had nice bevels. And he actually called me to rebook when the groomer that was grooming the dog was standing in my salon where he'd taken because she gave him a better price. And I did not tell her that he called, but he called and he said, I don't know what it is, but when you do her, she just seems happier. And that's why he came back. He came back and paid more money because she looked happier when I did her.
Right.
And it wasn't that maybe I was probably nicer, I don't know, but it was the groom. Because when she came in, she had taken, neck all down short. So her neck was shorter. She didn't look us up on her toes. And when I did her, I gave her some shape and she looked happy. And her hair was really short. So you can do this even when dogs are short. If you're taking a dog down with an attachment, you still want to shorten this back part of their bum and give them this right here. Very, very important. Those are the two things that are going to really shorten them up. And then make sure that this is some sort of a diagonal. With like a Bichon, they don't have as much waist. So this wouldn't be as extreme and you certainly wouldn't take, an extreme flank on them. And then your doodles aren't going to be as extreme. They're just a little bit more of a setter body or a, golden retriever. Golden retrievers don't have a real severe flank. So your doodles, you're kind of doing in between that. Doodles do have, this is kind of a standard doodle type ear. Which is triangular. Doodles do have triangular ears, which is nice because that also helps set that neck. So it works in all your different breeds. It's the same shape is the same no matter what kind of dog it is. Yep. It's just he's easy because he stands still and doesn't move. So
yes.
He's easy.
That is a big advantage.
Yeah. It'd be a lot harder for me to show. I did a little poodle. I think it was a Yorkie poo that was like 5 months old and never been to the groomer. Chewing on you the whole time, squeaking. I did it, half of it in my daughter's arms, and she looked adorable when she was done, but she wouldn't have been a very good demo dog.
Right.
you know, but same thing. I still gave her shape. I still used my thinning shears. You had to use thinning shears on her because she moved so much. So if he were wiggly, I would do more with thinning shears, because every time they wiggle and you make a mark, it's like, oh, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing the thinning shears going into the hair a little bit, if they move, you know, I'm doing that through my fingers, so it doesn't matter if they move. And so I can get those little wiggly dogs straight and stuff.
Great.
So do you have, anybody have any other questions on this kind of thing? And I'll just briefly tell you a little bit about IPG before everybody leaves.
Guys, if anybody has any questions, you can raise your hands or just type it in. Okay, so Jennifer has a question. She's saying, when we're doing the head, is it okay to move down attachments and then scissor it out, or does the attachment make it look too flat? Maybe she's talking about the top knot.
Oh, the top of the head? I will tell you, I never groom heads with an attachment. I hate that. Because the head needs to balance to the dog, and you can't balance with an attachment. And I always do the head last. It's the last thing I do, because now the whole dog, I've got the body. So now when I do his head, and this doesn't matter what breed it is, you know, with a poodle, I know how tall his top knot needs to be to balance his body, which is about like it is now. And if I were to take this off with an attachment and take it short, now he's out of balance.
Right.
And the same thing with our little mixed breed dogs. And actually, it's much faster to do heads with your thinning shears than it is to do them with an attachment. When you do an attachment, now you have to blend in here. So I'll tell you, it's kind of hard to explain on him, but I'll tell you real quick how I do mixed breed or drop coat heads. First thing I do is I set the chin length. So I want the eyes, when the dog's looking at you, I want the eyes right in the middle. So don't leave that chin so long that the dog looks like it's hanging its head. So I set the length here. I clean out just under the eyes with my thinning shears so I can see the eyes, set this length. Then I turn the dog's head sideways and I lift up the ear. I don't pull it up. I just lift it up and I make a half circle with either scissors or thinning shears, a half circle right here from the nose to the back of the ear. And then I do the top of the head by just what I was doing when I was showing the thinning shears. I pull everything forward so that my finger is setting just in front of their eye. And I pretty much cut what's in front of my fingers. And then I do that. I go to the side and I do it again. And I go to the side and I do it again. And what will happen is all that hair is now out of the eyes, but you haven't got this real stark look. You haven't pulled it all back, so it doesn't look funky. It just looks real natural. And then if it's still long, then I just take it up and I know how short this is and I thin it back, but I do it all with my fingers. And the nice thing about doing that is now when I take it on the sides and blend it into the cheek, it's really easy. I just pull it out and kind of trim off what's sticking out. And the same thing, anytime I'm using thinning shears, I'll trim it, but I'm not trying to get it like it was scissors. So I'm not trying to get all of it off. I want it pretty much trimmed. Then when the dog shakes his head and drops, it's going to look really soft and natural.
Okay.
So that's kind of it in a nutshell, how to do heads. And by doing it with, when you take an attachment over the head, you'll find that you have a line on the side and it's hard to blend on those little mixed breed dogs. And this way, and that's pretty fast. Set the length, make a half circle, come all the way behind the ear, do the top, blend the sides, poof, done.
Right.
Pretty fast.
Is there a thumb rule, Linda, for like a lamb trim or, you know, like a regular salon trim on a poodle, like maybe not a show trim, but is there a thumb rule for the length of the top knot, like the height of the top knot?
Well, kind of. What you want on a poodle is if you set your comb on his cheek, so it depends on he's got a pretty nice head. So if I set the comb here, that tells me the length of the side. So that's the first thing that I set is that side. I was actually going to do a video on his head, but so that's my first cut is just where my comb sat. And then I'm going to comb it over and I've got that first cut. So now I just come up with what was sticking out. Sorry, and that kind of gives me my length. So I didn't really go close in here. I'm trying to do this from behind him, so I can't quite see. So if you come up, so if I get this straight line coming up off his cheek, and then I comb that hair over, he's got a rubber band in his hair. And then I comb everything over from the middle over, and I find that line underneath, and I just take that all off. That will give me the length of this top knot. So there's just that little bit of a point to come off. And that's how I figure it.
Okay.
And then I shorten his eyes from the back. So now he has a top knot. The very last part that I do is the front. So the length is determined by the sides of their head.
Okay.
Not by, if you take it short, they look silly. And the key to having it look nice is this right here, pinning out the outside of the eye. Because that's what keeps the hair out of their eyes.
Okay.
And he doesn't look like, see, it's long on the side.
Yeah.
So they can see,
tell the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the dog's head actually sets the length of the top. Now if somebody wanted it shorter, you know, I can take it and I would do it in my comb over. I would just take it just a little bit shorter and then fluff it up and see. But I won't take them to where they look silly. I like them to look cute. Poodles should be really elegant. So I want poodles to look pretty.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, if people say, oh, I want it shorter, you always have to remember that every dog going out of your salon is an advertisement.
Absolutely.
So however you groom, if you like grooming dogs that look like this, groom every dog to look like this. If you like them to have that little short flat top, then groom them all like that, because that's what's gonna, people are gonna go, oh, who groomed your dog? They're gonna say they hate it or they love it. So knowing that that's what you put out, that's what you'll attract. So groom dogs the way you want to be able to groom dogs, whether it's short or long. I don't take anything very short, but you're a good sport. As you can tell, because my own dog, we live on a horse ranch and he's long.
Oh.
So let me tell you really briefly about IPG, because I know Andrea's done quite a bit of her certification. Jean-V's a master groomer. We have 4 certified master groomers from IPG in your country.
Oh yeah. Who are the other 2?
The one gentleman who was the first one, I cannot pronounce his name. It's like Ashkai.
Akshay.
And I don't, yeah. And then, oh my gosh, my brain just went dead. There's somebody way in the north of India that they have a school, and she came to Vegas a number of times and got certified there.
Radhya.
Yes, Radhya. Yeah. So now what happened when the COVID shutdown happened is we got really good at certifying online. So we now do certification on Zoom. We do it every month so people can do testing. So it makes it a lot of fun. And I've done some like in Australia and stuff, and we just alter our time schedule so that, you know, it means that I'm staying up late and you guys are starting early or something like that, because you're almost 12 hours different than us.
Yeah.
So it's very doable. You know, we just kind of make it work, but it's a lot of fun. It's amazing how much advice I can give you on Zoom. We can walk you through grooms. You know, the way IPG works is if you're grooming a dog and you're like getting that rear angle wrong, I'll say, wait, stop. And I'll just get you to move your hand the right way until it's right. And then I say, okay, now cut. So we can actually teach you a lot about a lot of the shape. Shape is the hardest part. Shape, our certification is in three tracks. The first is our safety. That's our certified professional groomer. The second is the advanced professional groomer. And then the third track is the masters. And in the advanced, that's where we start working on the shape. And shape is a very difficult concept to grasp. So if you guys are recording this, watch it again. Because the first time you're going to go, okay, I got it. And then you're going to go groom a dog and you go, okay, I don't got it. So watch it again, and because it takes a while to really for it to click. And I know sometimes I go too fast, but so, watch the recording again and really think about the shape and then practice it and then watch it and practice it again. But the cool thing is the way we're doing that certification, it makes it, we're there to help you. IPG's goal is to keep all groomers safe. First goal is to keep the dog safe and the groomer safe. That's the most important thing. Dogs need to be treated well in the grooming salons, and groomers need to take care of themselves so that you can groom like me to, for a long time. I have no carpal tunnel. I can still groom. I get tired because I spend so much time in my office now that when I go out and groom all day, it does wear me out, but I still love to groom. It's something, how many people have jobs that they love to go to every single day? Because that's how I feel. So we're really lucky. So our certification is geared to not only make you, get that certificate, but make you a better groomer as you're doing it. It should be a journey that you get, that you improve on as you go through. Because I know I did when I started. So each track builds and gives you tools for the next track. So it's kind of cool. And in 2 weeks, we are going to have a class that I'm going to announce it on our Facebook group. And anybody is welcome to join our Facebook group. It's IPG Groomers. And every Thursday at 6 p.m. my time, which is like 6:30 in the morning for you guys, we do a live, about a half-hour live on Thursday nights. And I talk about various things that a lot of times it's based on questions I've gotten during the week. We started it when COVID came because, groomers wanted advice on how to groom when they were starting back into, doing the social distancing and all that. So we started there, and we talk a lot about what's required for certification, what to do when customers ask you funny questions, and that doesn't cost you anything. You're all welcome to join that. And I will be putting a notification up probably tomorrow on that group we're going to have like a little webinar kind of like this on just getting started with IPG certification and what's involved, the benefits of being a member and what's involved in that, all that testing. And so we're going to have a webinar that everybody's welcome to join. So I will be actually putting the link on the website or on the Facebook group. So, and I can't remember the date. It's 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks from yesterday. I think it's on a Wednesday evening, which would be a Thursday morning for you guys. So
around maybe the 14th of July, probably.
I think so. Okay. So, but I will be posting that on our Facebook group. So if you're curious about certification, you thought maybe it's something you might be interested in, and that's a Facebook Live. So even if you guys don't want to get up at 6:30 and watch it, you can watch it after because it stays up.
Yep,
so
that makes sense.
Once I've done a live, it's up there. So just join that Facebook group, and that'll answer a lot of your questions. Or you can email me and ask me questions. I get lots of emails. Message me. I spend most of my life talking to people about different things, so I'm fine with that.
And we're thankful for that. That makes so much difference to so many groomers around the world. So,
but that's, my dream is to make groomers better and to keep all the dogs safe. So if and to keep groomers from shaving everything. Those are kind of my things. So if I can touch more, more people and get them at least partway on the road to doing that, then that's good. That's what makes me happy. So I'm more than happy to answer questions. So thank you guys for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
I miss seeing all you guys. Be nice when we can actually see each other, not on a screen.
We hope we can host you sometime in India. We'd love to do that. So
fun. It would be really fun.
So hopefully someday soon.
Yeah, well, the traveling we're not doing so many trade shows anymore. We want to just go and work with groomers now. I don't want to go stand in a trade hall and, I'm kind of over that. So I've gotten to do so much face-to-face with Zoom. I feel like I really made much more of a connection with everybody doing this. So I feel like I know a lot of our members better. So it really is, in many ways, as horrible as COVID is, that's been one nice thing that's come out of it, is that we've actually been able to interact with a lot more people So
That's true.
that's kind of fun. So
So thank you so much,
thank
Linda.
you.
It has been a huge pleasure having you here.
Oh,
And
let me mention one other thing before I leave, because it might
yeah.
be something that you want to do something on later. We just introduced a cat certification.
Oh,
We're
yay.
working with the Professional Cat Groomers Association, and we've kind of merged with her. So we just
Okay.
started, we just launched it at Atlanta Pet Fair. So we've been doing it for a few months now. But so if anybody grooms cats,
I think most
we
of us
just,
do actually.
yeah, that's our new thing. And it kind of mirrors the dog. We have our 3 tracks: our safety track, certified cat groomer, our advanced, and our master cat groomer. So
Oh,
it's a lot of fun
I'm going to
too.
look it up.
Yeah, and it's on the website. You can look up, get information about it.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
we're
Cool.
endorsed by TICA, which is the International Cat Association. It's the largest cat registry in the world.
Mhm.
So they host, if you guys have cat shows in your country, they're probably hosted by TICA. So that's
Yeah.
kind of exciting too. Just another little add-on.
It's like
All
it's like
right.
the cherry on the icing.
I know. Just one more thing for you guys to think about doing.
Yeah.
So thank you again.
Thank you
I
so
hope you
much,
all have
and
a
thank
great
you for staying
weekend.
up late for us.
Yep, it's not that late. We're good. Late for Quill. Quill's
Yeah,
ready
poor
to
thing. Thank you so much
All
for
right.
being such a
Thank
good
you. Bye,
sport.
Jambi.
All right, bye.
Thank you,
Thank you
Linda.
guys.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
thanks for having us.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.